All right, Derrel Sims. I can't say enough about Derrel Sims. 38 years in this business. He is a straight shooter. He's a black and white guy. I have interviewed him personally on my show for 2.5 hours. And during that broadcast that night, we had one phone call after another, callers calling in to thank Derrel personally for the help that he has done in their lives. And that says more to me than anything. He's a man of conviction. He's got a great show, UFOs Uncovered, Uncovering Aliens. Uncovering Aliens. But aside from that, it's his experience with law enforcement, the CIA, and his research with Bud Hopkins, and going back to John Mack as well, and his references and his CV and his credentials. It was another thing. I didn't want to embarrass him on the air, but I did. When I introduced him on the show and read his bio, that was one thing. But I took another 10 minutes and I read his CV on the air worldwide. And I didn't want to embarrass him. What I wanted the audience to know, and all of the listeners that listen to my show, they listen to the show because they're there for the truth. And they know that I'm always going to steer them in a straight direction. And so when I bring on somebody like Derrel and talk about his credentials, it's another thing for a guest to be able to back them up. And that speaks volumes about Derrel Sims. His new book, right here, Evidence and Light, Alien Hunter, it's in the back. But I would like to welcome my friend. I didn't know I was going to introduce him tonight. I'm honored. But I'd like to, everybody, please put your hands together for Derrel Sims, the Alien Hunter.
Well, I'm heavily medicated and ready to go. This is California, right? Let me take this off. Scare everybody. What I would like to do to begin with is play you a little video clip. And thank you, sir. You're a gentleman. Before we get started, could we do one thing? Does anybody have an iPhone like this? Or another phone kind of like it? Could you please turn it off or on vibrate or some other modality that will not upset the person next to you or me? If I should call you, I don't want you to answer in this meeting. Please turn out. No, he's talking about different strange things. It's the Skinwalker Ranch. I talked to Siri the other day. She doesn't like me. She hung up on me. So I don't know what that means. So we're going to play you a little video clip of. Two daughters, and the daughters, they're having a lot of fun now because they're getting a lot of attention. But the fact is that Mommy is having a great time. She thinks, whoever it is, are saving the planet, fixing the ozone hole, or whatever, and that's great. The problem is the kids are sleeping with baseball bats and stuff. What I'm trying to tell Mom is, it doesn't matter. I don't mind what you're doing. That's great, but the children are not getting the message. And there's a disconnect, and I'm kind of wondering if Mom would kind of like pay more attention to the kids than just the phenomenon, because it's really more about your children. See if we can change this back here. You guys did say you brought a lot of stuff back from Skinwalker Ranch, right? Yeah. Video difficulties and so on?
Put the volume back on there when we shut it down, remember?
No, that's not it. I've got it back on. Yeah, it's on. Or alien, whichever.
Investigator Derrel Sims claims to have been abducted himself and immediately recognizes the type of alien that Jessica has seen.
What Jessica's describing as a small gray alien, they're the least intelligent of all the alien kind, and they can really be mean.
Derrel wants to see if there's any evidence of alien presence left in the girls' rooms.
This is my room.
Now, tell me very briefly where the entity was at and what happened in this room.
Alright, so I was facing the door, and it just peeked in from right around the door frame, and then came right on in and then hid right over near where you're standing.
Okay. This is a special ultraviolet light that's used to detect the presence of an alien. The alien leaves a sweat-like material. Okay. Well, I don't see any evidence of him recently. And let me check over here next to your bed if you don't mind. What is that?
It's a baseball bat.
You felt like you needed something like that?
Well, after I saw that little figure in my room is when I really think I got it out.
You feel like this helps comfort you?
It just makes me feel safe when I have it by my bed.
It's good for you, at least in that respect.
Yeah.
Okay. Next time you see something in here, if you don't try to defend yourself, get a bigger bat. This is not much. But the fact is, in most cases, stuff like this is really not effective. Really. Believe it or not, the things that are effective against these entities are things that are mental. And think of something really funny, really interesting in your head, and just repeat it over and over and over and over to the point it's stupid and funny, and they'll short circuit. They can't figure out what you're doing. One of the ladies that I know is a full-grown woman, reached up, put her arm around the little guy. He was like, oh my gosh. She grabbed his eye cover and tore it off. That's the weirdest thing in the world, but it works all the time. It's real easy. Take my word for that. I know.
I haven't really told anyone about any of my experiences before.
I've only told a few of our close family friends, and now everybody gets to know.
I don't think we rip the eyes off of an alien's face, no.
Here, get this going.
Okay, here we go. Alien hunter is a term that was given to me years ago as a description. A lady was interviewing me, and a journalist, and she said, oh my God, you hunt them. Why, you're the alien hunter. Okay. So that's how it came. I did not pick that out for myself. It just, one of those things that just happened. A lot of people ask the question, how in the world did you get involved in this? That's me. About 4 years old, I was a captive audience in every sense of the word. I had no clue who they were, what they were. I wasn't scared. Back in 1952 when this occurred, nobody even knew what an alien was. I mean, there weren't any. I'm sorry, that show was not on TV. So I couldn't. The two big things I want to tell you about that event is simply this. I wasn't scared. I was sitting up in bed looking at him, trying to figure out why in the world would someone be wearing no clothes in the middle of winter. It's freezing. I got all my little covers on me. And he can hear me thinking. He turns around and looks at me. And he realizes I've made a mistake. It's awake. Back then, they didn't want you to remember anything. Since then, a lot of things have happened. Things have kind of graded up a little bit. So as he turned around, of course, you got to understand, little kids think differently than adults. Anybody got grandchildren? Children? They do think differently than you, don't they? Something wrong with their brain. But anyway, I was one of them once. And he turned around, and I noticed he didn't have any clothes on, and he didn't have a TT. That's what little boys would call that. He didn't have a belly button, and I was real perplexed. What's wrong with this picture? I mean, I couldn't figure it out, you know. If it's a guy, why doesn't he look like a guy? What's the problem? So since then, I've learned a lot, and I can tell you if he doesn't have genitalia, it's because he doesn't reproduce. If he doesn't have a navel, he wasn't born. And I'm not knocking any of this. I'm just saying he got here some other way. He was hatched, cloned, manufactured, and I think in this presentation you may come to at least one of those three views about some of these entities. It's rather remarkable what they do. The big problem in my experience here in my intro about my life here very briefly is they came back and got my son. Now, I was okay with everything. See, my events started in 1952, and they ended violently when I was 17 years old, and 1965. And then it's okay, you know. You can do something to me, I can live with it. I'm a big guy. I'll figure it out. I'm a real big guy, as a matter of fact. Everybody is in Texas. And I said, when I got my son, I ran through the house in the middle of the night. I didn't run to his room because I already knew he wasn't in his room. I knew that. As soon as I got up, I knew they were there for the first time in many years. And like I said, you can do anything you want to me, I can live with it. You mess with my children, and you committed the unpardonable sin, in my opinion. Anybody got children they love? Some of us have others too, but you know what I'm talking about? If a kidnapper comes in and gets your kids, what you going to do? You know what I'm talking about. You're going to protect your kid, and so on. And that's just the way mom and daddies are. I want to incorporate something tonight. It's a gift I hope I can give each one of you. And it's not a book. Forget it. You forget it. What it is I'd like to introduce you to at least one or two new hats. I call what I wear normally a UFO hat, an abductee hat, or whatever you want to call it. It's a neat hat. It's fun. That's why we're all here. We all have one. It's an understanding. In other words, it's a perception we have about the phenomena a lot of other people don't have. And that is pretty neat. However, the UFO hat has been fooled a couple of times. Mine has. I've seen some things that I thought were real and found out later they weren't, or somebody lied and cheated. And so it can be fooled is my point. Another hat that I wear is what I refer to as my cop hat. And my cop hat is simply a different method of perception. It's a very critical method of, it doesn't buy everything. Just because it's there doesn't mean that that's the answer. Whatever somebody spouts out, that must be it. And I would like for you, if you would, to think about using that hat in some of these pictures I'm going to show. And it's a very critical. In other words, when you see it, you go, wow, that's great. That's the UFO hat. That's a good hat. But that's a hat that you can't use for your medical, science, and other work. If you do, you get in trouble. It's called junk science. So you can't do that kind of stuff. The third hat I want to present to you, in closing tonight especially, is called the intelligence hat. Intelligence hat doesn't care anything about the cop hat or UFO hat or anything. It simply wants to know why. What's going on and who did it? What is the end result? What's the end game? And that is an amazing and a wonderful hat to have because it'll show you things that you may not understand about this phenomena or other phenomena. And it's a useful hat in everyday life as well. I'm a licensed private investigator in the state of Texas, have been for 38 years. I do everything from bounty hunting to specialized bodyguard work, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to get through this real quick because I don't consider this really that important. This is a lady, I'm a handwriting analyst. This is a lady that taught me as well. She works in the State Department. Basically what she does is she's a profiler for people who are, and it's going to sound awful to some of you, people who have a tremendous propensity to commit terrorist acts. You know that some of that stuff will show up in your handwriting? It's amazing. Handwriting is brain writing. It's not your hand. It's your brain that's writing. And if you know how to review that and interpret it properly, you can learn a lot about people. So what do you think I would use handwriting for in any of my UFO work or anything else? Anybody read that? Some people think it's face, some people think it's not. If you have a propensity to be a liar or not tell the truth, exaggerate and things like that, especially as an abductee or contactee or this sort of thing, that's going to show up in your handwriting. So that's a real useful tool. Another tool I used, and Bud Hopkins was present in this one. This was in Marseille, France. And in this presentation, I took this man who didn't speak a word of English. I didn't speak a word of French. Oh, that's not true. I looked at the audience that was all French, and I said, "Parlez-vous français?" And they all laughed. Because it's good, because I don't. I just don't speak French. So what I showed them is I could determine what this man was doing, what he was thinking, how he's thinking, what part of his brain he was thinking from, and give most of the answers before he ever answered the question. Well, that's a pretty good skill. It has nothing to do with brilliance or anything. It has to do with understanding what it is, the tools you're using. These are great tools for investigating cases. I went to Brazil one time and they had 250 people lined up wanting to talk to me about their UFO stories. Would this be a valuable tool to have, especially if they all speak Portuguese? Yeah. And you can go through them real quick. You find out the ones that are not really telling the truth or whatever, kind of fabricating the stuff. You can go through them real quick. I'm also a hypnotic anesthesia therapist, and all this simply means, this is not a brag deal here. All this simply means is I'm older than dirt, and that it's true. No, the first time they made dirt, I told them that's the wrong color. And so they changed it. Now that's why we got this stuff now. It's a good color, huh? So everything I've ever wanted to do in my life, and me and my wife, we went out, we made money, and then we went out and did it. As opposed to some of my friends who are like 1,000 years old, and they've got all kinds of money saved up, and guess what? They can't go anywhere to spend it. They can't. You know what I'm talking about. It's not going to work for them. I decided not to do that in my life. I want to do everything I want to do first. That's okay with me. So I did. Then we did some TV production. Some of you may notice the black hat there. Good guys wear black there. But I'm wearing a white one tonight, so I had, sometimes I wear both. But this is in Myrtle Beach, and amazing cases here that we went through. One of the things I want to say about the show, it's really wonderful, is I make a prediction when we're in a out of state. We're up in Michigan, and I tell them, I said, the UFOs, in my opinion, are not flying across the skies doing everything all the time. They used to, but a lot of times they're not now because there's too many people watching, too much military, intelligence, and other people and others watching. So you kind of want to cover your tracks a little bit if you're going to do this. You don't want to fly around in unwelcome skies. So one of the things they're doing, I said there, and I got kind of a few laughs out of this from some other people, I said they're using the water. That's how they traverse many times. That's why you won't see some of these craft. They're massive. Where are you going to hide a craft that big? The Army hasn't got a base that big to hide a craft like that. True. Did Jimmy show us something underwater a while ago that you could put something like that? Pretty interesting, isn't it? Great work, Jimmy. I mean, that is absolutely outstanding. But USOs were seen as far back. The first record that I know of was Christopher Columbus. It was underneath his ship as it went by. My wife says, you're never going to be happy unless you're doing Mach 4 with your hair on fire. And I said, that's right, sweetie. The romanticized view of me in some of my stuff is this. The alien hunter, this is what he really does. That's not real. I did actually go to the Men in Black training school. It's a TV fun thing. I mean, a movie fun thing, and had a lot of fun there. But that's what you look like in the field, 7 days with no sleep. The alien, I was literally 18 inches away from him. I almost caught him. I've nearly done it 3 times, and I eventually will. Have no interest in harming him. Don't want to kill an alien. I don't know who comes up with this stuff. Not interested in that at all. Not at all. I suggest if you want to follow in my tracks, that you get a helmet. Because some of this stuff is not user-friendly. I did bring a book. I've got about 15 books back there. Thinking I get some double videos that are audios that are really wonderful. The commercials are out of them, so they're really great. And so you're welcome to review. The reason the book is interesting to me, it's not written for the regular reader. It's written for people who have experiences or know people who have experiences or relatives and so on. It'll show you how to find evidence just exactly like I did. It's not a big secret. I published it. I want everyone to know so everyone can use this stuff. And I was honored one day when I was asked by MUFON to write 3 chapters in their investigator manual on implants, fluorescence, both of which I discovered, and hypnotherapy, which I've adapted for the UFO phenomena. And we've gotten some wonderful results out of it. So I'm very proud of that and very grateful that they allowed me to do that. When my wife and I got a phone call one day, and this gentleman and all these people, this is the State Department people and his family, and he had an entire church in Puerto Rico. They're all abductees, every one of them. And the guy in the middle, on the left side of me, is he's ex-intelligence, and they've got a MIB background. I mean, an alien MIB problem you can't believe. This is the second country they fled to get away. I told him, you can run, but you can't hide. I mean, they're following a neural pattern in each person that they're looking for, and it's very rare they ever lose anybody. Rarely, sometimes they do. Abductions. What I want to talk to you for just very briefly about is abduction, what it looks like. And everybody that goes through abductions ends up with cuts, scars, lumps, bumps, and all kinds of little things. What most investigators don't talk about is that there are some rough parts of this. Some of the events are pleasant. Some of them are even etherically wonderful. Some people have positive experiences. There are many of them that don't. And some of them, it colors their life forever. Here's just one of my abductees in Palm Springs alone. Dr. Derrel Diamond, in fact, he's a psychiatrist at his group literally established standards in the state of California. Some nurse interrupted and said, "Who do you think you are? You peddling all these medical terms around. You think you're somebody?" And I said, "No, ma'am. I just work here." And she just would not get off my case. And finally, this gentleman, I didn't know who he was. He looked at her and says, "Who the hell are you?" And she says, "I'm a nurse so-and-so." And he said, "Well, I'm Dr. Derrel Diamond, and I want you to shut up." He said, "I paid good money to come hear this man, and you're interrupting. You paid money to be here. Nobody wants to hear you. Sit down." And she did. We never heard from her again. I think she's got captured on that craft. One of the things that is interesting is people will give me things. They'll send things that 81 years old, gave me this photograph, which to me looks like a B-grade bad movie out of Hollywood about UFOs. The problem is I have the original negative. Those scratches are real. Of course, other people have different views of, funny little things about, hold on and keep your seatbelt on. It's harder for them to get you out of the car. This is one of my abductees. Had an interesting experience. You can see literally the prints on where the arm has been held down. In effect, you'll see this fairly often in this phenomena. Even the times when the event started, when it ended, and everything. I love it when they keep accurate records. It goes to their credibility, and I'm very, very proud of this person for doing that. Just absolutely proud of them. Sometimes they'll do drawings for you and send you all kinds of neat things. This is one in Dallas, Texas. I just love that. This is a lady. This is really interesting. Upper crust. I don't have any problems. We're well-to-do. Got plenty of money. And why do these marks keep showing up on me all the time? Her husband brings me these pictures. Here I have it in plain light, black light, and all these other modalities. What do you think? And she's definitely an abductee, not because she has a mark on her, but because of her history. She just is having a real tough time dealing with it. Let me explain something real briefly about abductees and contactees. And I mean this in the kindest way, because I love both of them. I do. I love people. Abductees are people who feel like they've been taken against their will. I call them the killer bees. What does that mean? If you steal his honey, you're going to get stung. You know, he's going to do his best to try to get you to leave him alone. Killer honeybees on the other side of the coin they're wonderful. Everybody like honey? Is this not a good idea? Honeybees don't realize the funny little man in the white suit stealing their honey is not supposed to be stealing their honey. They don't know that. It's been going on for so long, they think it's normal. And so they allow it and they think it's okay. And it may be. You know, I'm not judging that, saying it is or isn't. I'm just saying there are two distinct, different groups. And it's not that they chose their groups. It's the program that's been run on you, whatever that is, often will color your experience so heavily, good or bad, whatever that means to you, that you'll end up being one or the other. So it's often a choice, in my opinion. Some abductees would like to turn the tables around once, at least. Now it's your turn. We've done all kinds of neat things. We're developing things all the time. One of them is a symbolic profile chart in which I can take these 6 drawings, and I do this for whole presentations. You can look at all these, and you can, after you look at this a little bit and see where I'm going with this, you'll say, oh my God, that's a contactee, that's an abductee, that's an abductee. You can spot them for a mile just by looking at their drawings. It's absolutely amazing because your consciousness has been colored, or a program is running there. I'll give you a hint. You think it's abductee or contactee? Check out the dolphin. Check out the rest of it. This is a contactee. And this is also a contactee. And the two things I really am interested in more than anything are those two little things. That one we have you draw, it's called Draw a House That Represents Yourself. And the other one that I'm most interested in is this one, and it is draw an insect or an animal or something, or animals that represent your family and you. And it tells volumes of what's happened in these people's lives. So we have what kind? Do you think it's abductee or contactee? See the dragon there? The dragons will often show up with abductees. And that's really, really interesting. This is a drawing that was done by an abductee in Houston, Texas. It was given to me privately. And the individual is very famous. His work is in the Museum of Fine Arts, and he committed suicide later from not because I don't think just UFOs, which you do see the UFO in his event there, but that's his father over here. You see how tyrannical he looks, and these 3 pyramids out there. That's the sister, the mom, and him. And the pressure was so great that he finally ended his life. Just a horrific story. We also made something that some of you, if you saw, how many of you saw the movie Uncovering Aliens? The 4 shows? 2 shows? 1? Could I give you a film? Okay. One of the things I do there is I developed a flip chart because I used to be a cop. So when you have perpetrators, somebody commits, they steal your kid or something, we show you a flip chart and you kind of assemble us a criminal. Get the perp, does that look like him? That's it. And so a lot of people flip through this and they kind of laugh, hee, it's funny, until you see them go, like that. What does that mean? 55% of your communication is your physiology. 38% is your tone, pitch, and timbre of voice. I have 93% communication and you haven't said a word yet. So I know I know who your handler is. 45% of the people that get taken in this phenomenon are Native American, Indian, Irish, or Celtic. They are. When I went to Turkey and told them this, they said, Mr. Sims, we love everything you do, but you are wrong on this issue. I said, no, I'm right. I said, the research is research. It's not about opinion. I didn't make this stuff up. And so they had a professor in their university do a DNA study of certain North American tribes, Native American tribes, took the DNA back, tested it against their people. Guess what? Turks are Native American Irish Turk. Do you know they used to live in teepees? They did. Even with the little marks on it like this, I'm not making this stuff up. I'm right about the research. Statistics. I'll just give you a couple of statistics, not just a little. A couple of them that are kind of interesting. 45% are Native American, Indian, Irish, or Celtic. And a couple of interesting ones to me. Up to 31% of the people we've tested in these events have a rare drug allergy to procaines. Anybody allergic to lidocaine, novocaine, carbocaine, cocaine? Any of the cane family, it doesn't make any difference. If one of you raised your hand in this room, that's remarkable. They don't even test for it because it's so rare. And for 31% of abductees, even in a small segment of testing, to show up with that rare drug allergy, it's incredible. The other group of us don't have an allergy to it. I don't have an allergy to procaines. They just don't work. I told my dentist that, and he just laughed. Sit down. When he hit me with that drill, after he drilled me, gave me all those injections, I thought he and I were going to have an altercation. Because it was like hitting... You remember the movie Marathon Man? It was like that. And so I finally used my hypnosis, and I said, hit me that nitrous, and I just tranced out, and I said, drill away. But that's the only way I can do the dentist business. Sometimes the people send us these neat pictures, and they're just almost perfect, picture perfect. And as an abductee, I look at that and I say, oh my gosh, there's a Billy Meyer UFO right there. That's so cool. When I put my cop hat on, I'm like, isn't that interesting how that UFO is perfectly situated in that picture? What's wrong with the picture? Thank you for sending the picture. Didn't buy it. This lady in Brazil is one of my investigators there, outside Sao Paulo, and she's a real cowgirl. I mean, this is nothing fake about her. She also has some remarkable implants. She's on the front of my book on implants, and she's got an implant in her arm right now. It's on my website, alienhunter.org. Click on it, and you can just click on the videos. This is all free, folks. Just have fun. They do these vigils where they go out all night and watch for UFOs and things like that, and she sent this back to me. These are just different things they caught on several different nights. Now, these are not in the sky 900 miles up. You know how far they are away from these people? Probably 50 to 100 feet. Finally, I said, can I ask you a question? She said, sure. I said, we're buddies, right? She says, yes. I said, no offense. She says, right. Do any of your people ever have missing time while they're doing this stuff? She says, all the time. Okay, good. Do you have any idea what that is? She said, those are probes. I said, no, they're not. She said, well, okay, what's a probe? And I said, a probe is a sharp edge. You know, when you see a metallic UFO this big or bigger or whatever, those are probes. I said, the fuzzy ones? She said, yeah. I said, that's an entity in transit. They're coming towards you or they're leaving you. One of the two. And you have it on film. They have a bunch of other neat stuff too. I mean, they're doing some great work there. I'm very, very proud of these people. Very proud of them. Some people like send me drawings of what happened to them in the in the snowmass wilderness and so on. It's really funny. I went to this abductee's home the other day. I said, why are you obsessed with owls? All these owls. I said, I've counted over 100 owls in your house. Do you have any interesting memories of owls? Yes. Where do you think that comes from? Owls, Scotties, doesn't make any difference. Large black eyes, that's the big thing. I said, on your front door? I mean, I've never seen so many owls in my life. Now, in my experience when I'd going through all this business, one of the things that happened to me, and I showed this to one of my abductees the other day, and the abductee freaked, and I said, that's an end time scenario. I said, I was 6 years old, shaking, didn't know what to do. I mean, people are running crazy, mountains are boiling, I mean, horrible things. And I'm wide awake while this is going on, and I'm like, wait a minute. My abductee hat, the victim hat, came off, and this little cop hat type thing went on for a minute, the critical one. And why is everybody running crazy and I'm not? My wife showed me, I'm not a Trekkie, a lot of folks are, but she is. And she said, you need to watch this. And she showed me this one, and it said it's called the holodeck. And that's what that's like. And once they realized it wasn't working on me, the scenery stopped instantly. Oops, didn't work. Run another program. And I was just amazed when I saw the Star Trek of the holodeck. One of the neat things about abductees, they had these screensavers, as I call them. It's like a computer. Your brain's like a computer, and it has a screensaver running, until you bump it and everything, and then all of a sudden something else happened in there. This is just a front. This is just a screensaver. And one of them is the Michelin Tire Man. Believe it or not, they're actually abductees, contactees that say that. One day we found someone that looked like the Michelin Tire Man, and I got to thinking, wow, maybe they're telling the truth. I don't know. Sometimes these abductees, and this woman in particular, and I'm not picking on anybody, because people have positive experiences too. They do. I don't care what anybody says. This lady swore in a stack of Bibles that she had all positive experiences. She was in the school of higher consciousness and all kinds of she described some incredibly wonderful things. The problem is she kept getting up in the hypnosis screaming, "Leave my brother alone! Leave him alone!" And a 17-year-old boy was also abducted in the event, and he's standing there watching this whole thing, and he later painted this picture of her event. I never showed this to her because I didn't have the heart to tell her. I would prefer her have a better memory than that. Some of the things we do for abductees is, I'm a master level NLP, which that basically means I can take whatever it is you want to do and exacerbate it into a really neat way, like skills or sports or anything, it doesn't matter, whatever it is. And this lady had a severe phobia that a therapist told me that it'd take 2 years to get rid of. 11 minutes later, she's playing with a ball python. Now, some of these phobias come directly from the UFO event. This is one of the most interesting. This is L.A. I got to tell you, this one just melted my heart. I was so excited. Guy called me, and he had all kinds of issues and things, and talked to me, and I just very proud of this guy. Just so proud of him. And he says, my friend borrowed my car without my permission, took it, ran a red light, and got a ticket. And he sent it back to me. Oh! I said, yeah, that's rough, $350 or something. That's tough. He said, Mr. Sims, you're always looking for evidence. And I said, that's right. I said, where's the beef? He said, the alien's in the back seat of the car, sir. And I said, what? I looked at it, I said, you send me the original. Don't you send me a copy. He said, yes, sir. And he did. That is the original. I have it. And in the back seat, you could hardly see it there, can you? See if you can see it a little better there. Well, now, to be fair, cop hat back on, I don't know what that is yet. Do we have cases where the alien was actually in the car with someone and seen by other credible witnesses? Yes. That doesn't mean that one's it. But that's a good start, since it was taken by the city of Los Angeles. It hasn't been tampered with, and that's pretty neat. And you still got to pay the fine, though. It doesn't matter who's in the back seat. You know what I mean? So why is it what's so unusual about you? Why does everybody in the universe want to roll around here and let's just talk about planet Earth and pick up a few folks? What is it that's so important about us? I've discovered 6 reasons why they may be taking you, or me, or someone. They quit taking me. There's probably 100 reasons for that, but 6 reasons why they're picking you up. And I want to explain this very briefly. I actually have a test for those of you who are interested. It's free. I like that. And you can take it, and it goes into this much more detail. But basically, one of the things they're interested in, I'll break this up into two sections each. The spiritual and the psychical. They don't care if you're Gene Dixon. They don't care if you're Billy Graham. That is irrelevant. That's not what they're looking for. Oh, because I'm so psychic, they got me. No, it's not. You think it is, and I hope that that's a good reason they got you, but it's probably not it, or not much of it. The fact is, they don't care if you're Gene Dixon, or whoever. They don't care who you are. That's irrelevant to them. The difference is, whatever you do in the spiritual or the psychical area, it's not like other people. Are you listening to me? Whatever you're doing there, it's not like anything other people are doing. That's the interest. It's really amazing. The second one is the science and technical. I have, especially these abductees or engineers, there's nothing unusual about me. One guy told me that. He was the guy we did the first surgery and took an implant out of the back of his hand. He said, nothing unusual about me. I said, you go feed that stuff to anybody you want to. I said, but the fact is, I know you. And you are a computer genius, completely self-made. I said, there's a lot more about you that nobody knows. I know that. And I said, you feed that to someone else. There's a reason. And the reason is, it's not because he's a computer genius or because of this. It's because he processes things differently. They can get all the tech guys they want. That doesn't mean anything. It's the way you process. It's so different. And the last one is physiological and psychological things. Now, when I was in with Dr. Carla Turner and her husband Elton at a conference in Laughlin, I gave his presentation, this one part of the presentation, and one lady stood up in the crowd and started screaming, "Why don't you just prove it?" I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Well," I said, I can't use other people because you don't know them. So, I mean, it's kind of irrelevant, you know." I said, I can only use myself, and I said, then it's going to sound like bragging. So to make my point, it's going to denigrate the conversation. She said, "Do it anyway." So I did. And when I finished, I listed some things out, and she looked at me, and I said, example is better than precept. You want to step outside and do some of this? Boy, she backed off and sat down and didn't say a word. Candy kicked me. She says, I'll tell you. So they're very fascinated because whatever you're doing here in the physiological and psychological, okay, I'll give you one example. I'm a 4th degree black belt in the martial arts. You got a martial arts. Is anybody in martial arts here? You bet. We got some great martial art people in this room. I'm not one of them. But I'm a 4th dan in Shotokan and Goju-Ryu. My only claim to fame is I have never had a lesson in my entire life. I'm not bragging, and I don't mean it to mean that. If you think that, you've already missed my whole point, and I have just messed up. That's not what it's about. I process differently than other people. Can I beat everybody out there? No. It's not what it's about. I defeated 4 masters. One of them when I was a white belt. What does that mean? I don't process like they do. I think they got that point. And that's the point I'm trying to get across here. Psychologically, the same thing. You learn things psychologically that you pick it up in a different way. You don't even have to be taught necessarily. If you're taught, it's a minimum teaching. It doesn't mean anything because you process differently. It has nothing to do with your IQ. You're a genius and no one else. It doesn't mean that. Listen to me. I've got people in the UFO field that are literally geniuses. We have people who are not. Most of them are just average folks like me and many of you. And I've got other people that are bona fide abductees. I can't figure out how they find food. Well, it's because we're all so, and listen to me. I'm telling you the great truth here. On my site also you can click on and watch a movie, and it's called The Roswell Implant. This happened in front of Stanton Friedman, Ron Regier, Dr. Bruce Maccabee. I asked him if he would help me with this. He did, assisted, and the whole film's on alienhunter.org. Just click on it. It's a fun film to watch. Mark Easter did this. Great work. Absolutely great work. But this is, I want to do just a 30-second tribute here for a moment for my former partner, Roger Lear. This is him working on our first surgery. He did a foot surgery for me, the very first one. And the first surgery is a setup. And Patricia is here. This is the candidate. And anyway, does anybody know this lady? That's Alice Levy. Does everybody know her? You should, because she's been around MUFON and every other organization around here forever. And wonderful lady, sweet lady. I've been talking to her for about the last 3 months. And we have had a fascinating conversations. And she says, "Where you been?" And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, I'm going to come out to L.A. pretty soon." I said, "Well, I'll come out and visit you guys." So I visited her, and I visited a friend of hers, Roger's partner, Steve Coburn. And we couldn't have had a better time. Had a great time, just a lot of fun. We kicked around, went to, I have to confess this, we went to In-N-Out. You knew if I came here, that's where I was going to hit there first, and I did. This is also me in Alice's house reviewing a case because she just experienced another abduction. Now, what's really interesting is she's got another implant. It's a metal one, and it's in her leg, about the same place as the other one was we removed. This is Alice in the second set of surgeries that I hosted with Roger, and we hired an MD to do the surgeries, and this is Alice right here. She gave me permission to use her picture. And I'm reviewing her case now, and very impressed with the stuff in it. The woman is 100%. I love honest people, and she is all of that. And, of course, we're in the TV production, Uncovering Aliens. We're going into our second season. Looks wonderful. Everybody says, when are you coming to our place? I said, I don't get to choose. If I got to choose, guess where I would spend most of my shooting? L.A. or Santa Barbara or someplace like that, about the same kind of. So, and then you saw this production here, but another thing I want to go into real briefly is evidence. In the evidence range, you're going to see these cuts, all kinds of neat things, so I'm just going to go into these very quickly. This is an elderly lady. You can see the massive amount of needle holes in her side from her abduction. This was in the 90s in Houston, Texas. And some of these are a little graphic, and I don't mean them to be that way. This is a lady contacted me on the internet and says, look what they did to me. I said, ma'am, that looks like a target. And she says it does. And we talked for a while, and I said, it looks like to me somebody has used a laser to imprint you with that design. And there are a number of other women and men who've got some of these same things on their bodies as well. Believe me, this is not self-inflicted. Very interesting case. This is a case that was sent to me from mental health and mental retardation. Can you believe that? They sent this guy to me. Well, because he was... No, because he's nuts. He was. I mean, seriously damaged. And anyway, seriously in trouble. And she sent him to me, and she said, I think he'd benefit from your program. And I said, well, I hope so. I said, these marks are on his back, and during their second child, and I said, if I may talk to you, doctor, very plainly, I said, I understand there's 2 of them on the inside of your thighs during your first child. She got real quiet. That's why you sent him to me, wasn't it? So that you can find out what happened to him, because you're trying to find out an answer for yourself. The dermatologist that looked at this mark here, he ended up with this on his back 2 weeks later. He got a visit. That's pretty interesting. Some people, when they say, I got picked up by the alien, they mean it. And this lady is in Chile. This was given to me by my buddy Sanchez. And you can see the marks here. These are gigantic, huge handprints that are literally have a caustic effect. And the doctor said, I have no idea what would cause this. I have no idea. It's a caustic material that was on the hands of whatever it was that picked her up. This is my daughter-in-law from Brazil. She fled Brazil to get away from the alien. She came, stayed with us for a little while, and she had these things on the back of her neck. And she says, I want you to examine that and tell me what that is. And I said, sweetie, I said, I'm going to have to put my cop hat on if I do that. It might offend you. She said, do it. I don't care. I said, why didn't you turn that into the police? She said, I did. She said, the Federal Policia of Brazil took the picture. Good, good. That's one stroke. I said, it looks like that's a tattoo. And she said, it's not. And I said, it looks like tattoo to me. It's not. I said, it looks like tattoo to me. She said, that's after tattoo removal. So that was fascinating. When I went to Puerto Rico, remember the church with all the people that are abductees in the church, Puerto Rico? And the State Department people that walked us through, and all that, big entourage. State Department guys listening to my presentation at church that night, and guess what? He said, I took this picture in San Francisco when I was there. He said, I have no idea why I was fascinated with that symbol. He said, when I saw the mark on your daughter's neck, he said, I freaked out. So sounds like some people got some similar experiences. This individual here is in Houston, Texas, and notice the strap marks on her hands and leg. She's had a really tough time. This lady, Native American, has had scars clean across her thighs equally on both sides. She has no idea what it's from, but it's definitely UFO related. This is one of my abductees. Her children died in an abduction experience. This is her before and this is her after they brought her back. She went to the ER, and the alien put a device on both sides of her head that swelled her head up, something terrible. And anyway, it's pretty rough. She had a pretty rough experience. Mom was toughing it out. Besides the visible range, you can look in the invisible range. In 1992, I made an interesting discovery, and I figured, the alien probably sees an infrared, ultraviolet, X-ray, because abductees always say this, don't they? Why, it was like he was scanning me while I was on the table. He was. Well, why didn't they have an X-ray machine? They don't need one. It's right here in the eye cover. It fits. And Bud Hopkins and I were discussing one day. He said, I've never seen any of that fluorescence on anybody. I said, Bud, that's what it looks like without a black light. He said, I don't see anything. I said, I know. Got to have a black light. He said, that's why you never saw it, because you never did use a black light. You didn't know to use it. Now that everybody's doing this, everybody knows to look. This is the lady I found the first sample on in 1992. This was found on the inside of her left arm. It's a Mandelbrot set. For those of you that are familiar with it, it's a mathematical construction in fractal geometry that expresses order in chaos. The lady ran to the bathroom when she saw it, and it was blue. She went and scrubbed and reminded me much like a rape victim, because she kept crying and crying, and the more she scrubbed, the brighter it got. You can't get rid of this stuff. Some of the interesting things about the fluorescence that we found is that all kinds of things. We found this little thing. That a lady worked at Walmart, of all things. Her and her friend came in, and they both worked at Walmart. And they came in, and I just thought, well, it'd be funny if they both had fluorescence on them. Most of them don't. And she came in, and she had this big crescent moon right on the side of her neck. She freaked out. She ran to the bathroom, started scrubbing, like most of them do. This is fluorescence on a medical doctor. Not just a medical doctor had a UFO experience. This is his fluorescence in the hospital. The doctors leave, how they do. They leave you there for a while and get their stuff ready and all that. While he's there, he said, Derrel, and this guy is straight as honest guy you've ever seen, and he's an ex-cop and the whole 9 yards. He's an MD. He said, the fingerprints you see here on me, he said, they stayed there for 2 weeks. He said, the thing was, what I didn't tell anybody, is the alien came in and took the implant out of me, so when they did the surgery, they wouldn't find it. After they, finished the surgery and all that, and you're in the recovery and all that, and he said, when no one's around, they came back in and put it back in. Boy, I'll tell you. Unbelievable. One of the things they use fluorescence for in the medical world is to do things like, this is a carcinoma. It's a very dangerous cancer. My wife's husband, daddy, died of it. And but you can see the growth of it. You can test. There are a lot of things you can see and use fluorescence for. So it's used in the medical realm as well. And one of the things I've considered for the alien that they might be interested in doing, and probably have been for a long time, is to use the fluorescence that we've seen in some of these events to DNA tag someone. How long would that last? Well, it'd be interesting to see how many generations that might last. If you're not looking for it, you're not going to find it. So we have to put our cop hat on, or that hat, that critical hat that looks at things differently, and keep looking for it. This is bull sperm that has been fluoresced. You say, well, why did you put that in there? Because I beg people who do cattle mutilations and look at those things, horse mutilations and so on, animal mutilations, I beg them to take a black light out and use some of the procedures that we've laid down for this. I have yet to find anybody yet today to do it, but I promise you, in many of these events, you're going to find some really interesting stuff. And it's going to really contribute to your learning, your knowledge base in the cattle mutilations. Well, who's interested in all these dead cows? Well, some of the boys in the intelligence agency, the alien. So if those two are interested, probably we should look at it too. Be a nice idea. I talked to a DNA specialist professor, and I said, can you pick up of course I knew the answer to this, can you pick up DNA off of a fingerprint? And he said, yes, you can. He says, a good chance that you'll find that. The reason is because some of these abductees end up with these marks on their children, and this is on a little boy, and the mother couldn't film it, so she said, she's an artist, she said, I drew the exact mark the way it was, and then made this drawing for you. Again, when it comes to your kids, that's pretty upsetting. That's what fluorescence generally looks like. If it's on your hand, you can't get it off, you can't wash it off. If you can get it off, you can wash it off. Don't call me! Quit using green magic marker at bingo. This stuff will not come off. Whatever it is, it will not come off. It's like a sweat that exudes from the alien when they touch you, and it leaves this imprint on people. One of the things abductees sometimes say, oh my gosh, they made me drink this thing. It was like a chocolate milkshake, but it tasted terrible. And, oh, it was horrible. And then it made me defecate. It was horrible. And I said, oh, really? I said, well, when did that happen? Well, that happened just a couple of nights ago. Why didn't you tell me then? Oh, I don't know. Open your mouth. I put the large black light there and bang. And the inside of that person's mouth glowed the most beautiful white you ever saw in your life. This is not it, by the way. But this was an illustration. Another case of fluorescence we found on one of our abductees is rather amazing. We found this fluorescence on the person, like right here, the square, which appears to be procedural, is what we'd refer to it as, and then the writing here. First, it's the second time we've ever seen writing in. Well, the alien's writing you a message. No, they're not. What happened here is, in my opinion, I think that someone else was abducted. They take all your clothes off, your jewelry and things like that. And I suspect the alien, remember the fluorescence comes off of his hand? When he takes the necklace off of a lady who probably is Russian, because it looks like it's Cyrillic, and held it, and then the lady was sitting there. I said, you probably put your arm on her jewelry, and now you have a tattoo in fluorescence of her name and her jewelry. I said, that makes more sense to me. That's a cop hat. That's not the UFO hat. You have to be a little more critical at this stuff. That's a possibility of how that may have occurred. This is not real fluorescence. Please do not do this at home. This is one of my friend's children, and that child painted the other child. That is not washable marker. It isn't. And I begged her, can I have that picture? And she said, okay. I said, we won't laugh at everybody too much. One lady, the same lady that had the scrap marks that had been held down and all that on the arms and legs, this is also another event, and she says, why do I keep having these long fingers and things in this hand on this beautiful headboard of mine? This is not, so I try to get my cop hat off fast enough, put my UFO hat back on. I don't know. You know something. It could be anything. Yeah, but it isn't. So she kept pushing the issue and said it happened again. The long fingers, I said, she says, look at the suction points on the end of the fingers and all that. And I said, yes, ma'am, I see that. How could they be on my headboard? How can this be? How can this stuff happen when I'm in bed? I don't know. You know something. What I didn't tell her is that it's highly likely that the reason that's how that could happen, in your bed, there like that, and you're asleep in the bed, is because he's near you or on you. It's called sexual assault. And we've got several cases of that, by the way. Her dog came back with blisters all over him, and she couldn't figure that out at all. She takes care of that dog better than she does herself. She was horrified by that. Another case of sexual assault, this was a friend of mine in Arkansas, and she told me about it, and I said, sweetie, I want the pillowcase, I want that. She said it's a MIB that did it, an alien creature. I said, we're friends. We've been friends for years. I want you to drop this story right now. She says, no. I said, if I take DNA tests here and I find your husband's semen, I'm going to expose you in public for this. I'm going to tell everybody that you told a lie. She said, I'm not afraid of any DNA test. I said, it's exactly what I wanted you to say. So I've got the materials and we're going to have it examined. I said, you want to change your story? Now's the time. She says, nope. So I'm very impressed with that. And so one of the things we use is a specialized black light that I've got here. It's not just a black light. One of the levels of the black light on this piece of equipment is actually used to find blood on the shrouded terrain. That's not bad. That's why I paid $500 for it. Here's some of the equipment we use in some of these tests that we do for those that are interested in that sort of thing. The medical scientific hat. That's a different hat. It's a little more involved for sure, and we won't get into a whole lot of that tonight. But I just want you to know that it exists. But we will look at some medical things. Some people have helped us in universities, labs, and other places forensically, and we just had a new DNA person come on board. Why is that important to me? Because we've had 3, count them, 1, 2, 3 DNA people disappear. They left, they quit, they walked, they never said a word, except for one. She said, my boss said, if I did any DNA work for you, I would be fired. But it's on my own time and on my equipment. I said, what else is the headliner for that? And she says, I never told anybody. I said, you use email? And she said, yes. Somebody's reading it. Maybe it's NSA. Anyway, her boss was on that email. Somebody gave her boss that information. So fortunately, we've got a brand new person to do DNA work. Scoop marks. Let's talk about those briefly. This guy's got 7 of them in a row. 7 right down in a row. Isn't that amazing? I've only got 1, and I thought I was pretty good stuff. This guy beat me a lot. 7 of them in a row. This is a lady in Houston, Texas, 1991 and 92, excuse me. And she described how a scoop mark gets put on people. It's with a little pencil-like device, in this case, and it spins very quickly. It's little razors on the end, and it cuts you open. It takes the scoop out somehow or another, and then it cauterizes the wound with a very bright, ultra bright light. And we actually did some tests later and found that solar elastosis was inside these scoop marks, which means they were cauterized. On mine, I was 4 years old. How does a 4-year-old child get a scoop mark and get it completely cauterized by the next morning? It just doesn't happen. Well, not normally anyway. So, what I'm going to present real quick and for some fun stuff is, and a lot of this you've never seen before, real implant cases and some almost maybe real implant cases. Let me give you a real brief history. Implants, I discovered implants in 1960. Not because of any medical or great work I did, but simply because I was there in my event at age 12. Age 12, I was taken aboard the craft, and it's an amazing story. It's in my book for those who are interested. And in that event, I was elevated 11.5 degrees, about 11.5 degrees. My feet up on, I call it the slab, and the same cosmic airhead that picks me up all the time got me again, and the boss is there, this other creature, and they're deciding what they're going to do. And they brought out a long needle-like device about 7.5, 8 inches long, rammed it up my nasal passage, and broke the bones inside. Somebody forgot to say, "You won't feel this." I did, and it hurt a lot, and I cried quite a bit. And the reason I was crying is because I overheard what they were going to do to me and why. And you can't know that. Yes, you can. If you train yourself to listen to them, you know how they tell you, you can't listen anymore, you can't hear anything. All you have to do is just negate that suggestion and just keep listening. And you can hear everything that's going on. Let me go back one more. A little bit more history. After that, Dr. J. Allen Hynek was looking for someone in Brazil in the 1980s about some amazing implant story. I was looking for him too. I didn't find him. Neither did he, that I know of. And anyway, in 1992, I did a presentation for 250 surgeons at John Muir Medical Hospital on medical complications of alleged human-alien contact. This is an AMA-sponsored program for doctors. A bunch of them. Then, after that presentation, 1995, 96, I met Roger and I said, why don't we do a partnership, and I want you to do these for the foot surgeries. I said, we'll hire an MD to do the rest of them, but let's do that. And he agreed, and we went forward with that. And we did have some disagreements later, and I set up a whole system of protocols for a scientific medical system of protocols for this research. Those cannot be violated. And they were, and so I just asked him to step down. It's that simple. This is where I presented for the 250 surgeons on medical complications of alleged human-alien contact. There were some abductees. 2 women came there as well, and they presented. This is J.L. and Hynek's wife, Mimi. I'd never met her before. I was in San Marino, Italy, speaking, and you can see how she's all clammed up next to me. That means she doesn't like me. She doesn't believe a word I'm saying. She hasn't heard my presentation yet, but anybody that's got evidence is probably a lie, because her husband didn't find a whole lot, so you don't have it either. So I did my presentation, and she walked up the stairs with crippling arthritis and shook my hand and made my brain swell. She said, young man, she said, I never knew that there was that kind of evidence out there. My husband would have been proud of you, and I'm proud of you. I said, Ms. Hynek, I said, you have just made my year. I'll tell you, I could hardly get my head in the airplane. It was so swollen. Wow, I was very impressed. Implanted objects. Where do you find implanted objects? All over the body. And I'm going to, rather than give you a big list of this, I'm simply going to show them to you. What made my case interesting, it didn't interest me as an investigator because I didn't have any evidence. I had a story, I knew what was there, but I had no evidence. So I didn't consider mine that important. A guy came to me and said, I had the same events you did in 1960, same time you did. I said, you read a book, read my story, and you made that up, and I don't believe you. And he said, here's the x-rays. And you know what? The history's right, and there's the object right behind the eye. They took the needle, goes back up the nasal passage, back behind the eyeball, extremely painful. The object lodges back here. That's exactly where the object is. He said, I never told my doctors what it was, I just let them discover it. And I said, son, you are wiser than your years. I said, they'll spend a fortune trying to figure this stuff out. I want to show you a couple of cases very quickly. These are the kind of cases I like. This is the district attorney. He's standing outside. This is Wisconsin, just happened a couple of years ago. Very great case. I brought the watch with me, by the way. Brought a bunch of neat stuff you want to see. It's free. Anyway, they see this black triangle thing fly by in Wisconsin. He says, hey, honey, isn't that weird? Let's get in the car and go chase it. She said, are you out of your mind? No. He convinces her to go. She shouldn't have. Anyway, we can tell when their abduction started because the clock stops here at 10:29. So what does that mean? Well, it stopped for a particular reason. Next day, he takes his watch to the watch shop and can't figure out what's wrong with it, and they open it up and say, your watch has been melted from the inside. Now that's pretty neat. That's the contactee or abductee hat, or normal UFO hat. Wow. First question that comes to me as a police officer or an ex-cop is, what would it take to fake that evidence? What do I need to do? What chemistry would cause that? Because if I can disprove it, why in the world would I want to prove it? That's the only weak link in his story so far. We'll get this to a chemist, we'll get it to some people and look at it. If it stands the muster, it's going to be great. You know what the DA did? This is election year. You know what he did? Wrote an entire report, every gory detail. This doesn't get you reelected. I couldn't believe he had that kind of integrity, that he would simply tell the truth. And there it is, another picture of it. I brought the watch with me. Those of you who want to look at it, you're welcome to. The next witness. I love these type witnesses. You're going to love this guy. Terry, he's a really interesting witness, a UFO abductee. He's had UFO sightings. All kinds of neat things happened to him. I won't get into the massive amount of detail, other than the fact he was at a nuclear facility when the UFOs were there, and he was there at that event, and he's an abductee himself. And that a government MIB showed up to take over. This was a fascinating case, if true. And he's got all kinds of things. Missing time. I mean, this stuff is just amazing. And I've reviewed his case, and I'm working with him right now. And he also writes a great deal about this. He and I are going to write a book on this. It's how an attorney reviews evidence of an alien hunter. You know why he was a significant guy to write this with me? Because he's an attorney general. He's a retired assistant attorney general in Connecticut. And in the Samoan island. Now, what's fascinating about that is that here he is in Samoa. I said, you look really nice in that. He's a great guy. He's in Dallas. In fact, he's going to be on a radio show with me here pretty quick. Great guy. Sends all the photos and everything. And here's the nuclear base where all the event happened. Absolutely incredible story. But something is more interesting than that. Guess what he's got in the back of his leg? Can you count them? There must be 7 implants in the back of this man's leg. Now, it's very possible that these are in fact not implants. I am the first to say that. However, on the day that they found this, the doctors couldn't figure out what it was. I said, well, they look like calcifications to me. And he said, they might be, but the doctors were all freaking out and they couldn't figure out what it was and they wouldn't talk to me. He said, and I'm an attorney that used to prosecute doctors. Don't talk to me like I'm not in the room. He was really upset. This VA hospital is talking about that. So the fascinating thing about those marks, I sent this off to my doctor, my MD down in Houston, and he says, I'm more interested in that metal object in the back of his leg. Right where Alice Levy's is. He said, that is weird, Derrel. That's the only kind of cases I think I have. Just weird stuff. The most interesting part of this story is the same day this happens to him, his sister calls him and says, I went to the doctor today and my leg hurt so bad. Same exact leg. She says, they found 5 of these objects inside the back of my leg. I don't know what that is. I said, Terry, has she ever had any experiences that she's not able to explain? He said, if you mean is she an abductee? Of course she is. He said, we just never told anybody in the family. Other ways to look at things, x-rays and so on. I want to talk to you real briefly about this. This is so cool. One of the things the alien does, that's why my work is expanded into the medical field and medical parts of this that I find amazing. I went to the VA hospital the other day, not the one in Phoenix. Another one. And they actually do pretty good there. And while I was there getting an exam and everything, a regular exam, the doctor looked at me and said, where's your pain? I said, right here on the left side. He said, no, it's on the right side. I said, don't you tell me where my pains are at. I'll tell you. You're the doctor, I'm the patient. He said, no, they're on the right side. Would you like to explain to me why you think that is, sir? He said, yeah, that's where all your broken ribs are at. I don't have any broken ribs. Yes, you do. And then he called a radiologist. The radiologist was screaming. He said, don't tell me. I make $250,000 a year. Don't tell me. I don't know what to do. So we decided I probably do have broken ribs. The question is, how'd that happen? Happened when I was 17 years old. My last event, I told you, it was a little violent. He said, well, this one lady said, don't you understand? They healed you. I said, sweetie, you're missing the big picture. She said, what's that? Somebody kicked my ribs in first. She said, well, why do you think they healed you? I said, because to cover up the evidence. I said, do you know what it looks like if you've got a broken rib, how you move? It's worse when you got more. I said, how do you suppose I didn't have broken ribs the next morning or didn't know that I had broken ribs? When I was 12, I told you about the implant thing. What I didn't tell you is they cut a circle inside my nose, inside this nasal septum, completely cut. ENT looked at it and he jumped backward. He said, oh my gosh, when did you have the surgery? I lied, so I don't know. When I was 12 years old. Now what do you think I'm going to do? Stand there and tell him the story of, and then I was on this slab and my feet elevated at 12 degrees. I don't think he's going to like that. But I did tell my primary care physician and she freaked completely out. I said, sweetie, get that Boo Radley look off your face when I'm talking to you. You asked me a question, I just told you. I said, listen to me. I said, I've got 3 cardiovascular surgeons and a brain surgeon and other MDs that work with me. You're an MD. I said, I'm not denigrating what you do or who you are. That's great that you are. I said, but you couldn't carry luggage for these guys. They are fellows in their own industry. So don't look at me like I'm nuts, because they are too. And you can't carry their luggage. So look at me like I'm actually sane. I said I was before I told you the story, wasn't I? So these objects, the broken bones is one of the things, injuries. A neurologist called me up and she had found broken bones and injuries that were far worse than the car wreck or whatever happened. She said somebody's covering up these people's injuries of other things that they've done to them. And she said, you know anything about it? I said, just to do it. She said, every one of these people I'm talking about are your abductees. Thank you, doctor, for that piece of advice. And then, of course, remember, this is the first surgery we did that was public. And there's 3 metal objects there, and they end up turning out to be extraterrestrial. That's what they look like. Rather remarkable. What I didn't tell anybody, Roger didn't hear this. The 2 abductees didn't hear it. You're the first ones to hear it, period. What I didn't tell anybody was that the lady, Patricia, the one that Roger did the removal on the toe, she went inside the craft and saw a giant Mobius strip type thing like this, 3 of them. And they're 18 feet tall. She said, I think they powered the ship. I don't know. She said, but there was a giant ball about the size of a bowling ball that went through them, and it made the most wonderful noise. And then I got scared. Oh my gosh, I could fall and die. So she left. They escorted her out. So that was her story. I said, well, that's fascinating. Okay. Later, the guy who looks like Grizzly Adams, says, I ain't nothing special. Well, trust me, he's about smarter than most 3 people that you know. Brilliant guy. And he calls me in the middle of the night, drawing. I've got the drawings and everything. He called me in the middle of the night and said, you're not going to believe it still. It's incredible. Wake up. I got to talk to you. Oh, wait till I put my brain back in. What? And he said, I figured it out. How to get this source of energy and so on. I said, well, what is it? And he said, the concept involves the intertwining of 3 Mobius strips. And he did the math on it. And I'm like, this is above my pay grade. And anyway, I'm having some interesting people look at it. They're pretty interested. He's very confident in it. But notice that she saw 3, and then how he's taken that and put it into the concept of how to create energy. Suppose that were really true. Would that be worth anything? Probably. That's Alice. Hi, Alice. This is me in her house doing an examination on her, where they took her out through the window area. Pretty interesting. And as I said, this is I'm ready. Basically, I'd like to take her back to surgery. And I'd like to take Terry. I'd like to get them both out here at the same time and get those objects moved. If we did something like that, I'm not saying we are. Does anybody here want to be present? Do you know how many people showed up for a surgery that we did on the guy with the 7 scoop marks down his leg? Don Waldrop. Anybody know that guy? Don Waldrop, Jolene Ray Harrington. All kinds of people showed up in Santa Monica at this cardiovascular surgeon's office. And boy, I'll tell you, that guy was tough. And I mean to tell you, we had a brain surgeon present, and it was a blast. I mean, it was an amazing time. We all had so much fun. It's free. Sorry, we're not going to charge admission to that one. You can come in for free. If it's free for me, it's free for you. When I was in Brazil, that little object right there inside between the lady's toes there, it's about 1.5 inches long. And why that's fascinating is because the guy is showing me, the lady's complaining to me. She says, they did something to my feet. I don't know what it is. And I said, well, your husband's a doctor. Have him give you sir, could you get her an x-ray? He said, I'd be glad to, Mr. Sims. He said, I said, I'm leaving tomorrow, but bring it to the airport and I'll look at it while we're there. And he said, yes. Now, you got to understand, just because they're not picking me up anymore doesn't mean some of those programs that they ran on me for 13 years are still not working. One of them is you cannot see, you will ignore evidence, and so on and so on. That program works. I'm looking at this x-ray. The doctor's standing there. He's an abductee. He's looking at it. The lady's looking at it. She's an abductee. And not one of us saw anything in that foot. This is not real hard stuff to do. I came home 2 weeks later, thought, well, I better look at that one more time before I, file it. Pulled it out, and whoa! Well, how in the world could you miss an inch and a half long object in between her toes? I mean, does anybody not see this thing? That's just unbelievable. It's a program that they run. And one of the things you'll do is destroy evidence, ignore it, or not do anything with it. Now, as one of the last cases I want to show you on implants, it's kind of fascinating. This is on the front of my book. Remember the lady, the cowgirl? This is her implant. See that thing right there in her head? It's about the size of a lifesaver. She was in a car accident. She hit her jaw pretty hard, and they x-rayed her, and they took an x-ray from here up toward the jaw, check her teeth and everything, make sure her jaw wasn't broken or anything, fractured. And inside she says, what in the world is that in your hemisphere? What are you talking about? Remember Dr. Hynek was looking for the individual that had the implant back in the 80s? It's her. The one I was looking for in the 80s, nobody could find her? That's her! This is the lady. The cowgirl. Really neat. Cowboys and cowgirls are like special people, you know. Just kidding. Here's what the object looks like in there. They took this, where they taken it bottom up, there's the object. Now what's really amazing about this, in 2 years, the implant moved from one hemisphere to the other one. Now that was exciting. Of course, her debunker said, you just turned the x-ray over. That's all you did. You're just faking it. I love these guys. Don't they have a serious mental problem? Anyway, the fact is you can check this, and I did, and I have all the x-ray, not some of them, every one of them. And the fascinating thing is that they left no tissue whatsoever damage when it went in, but whenever they took the one out on the other hemisphere, this was left on her skull. All these deep marks into her skull. I don't know why. It's a procedure that they do. I don't know why. I've never seen this thing before, ever. If you go to my website, alienhunter.org, and click on it, you'll see her right there with her arm. You click on it, and you'll see an implant in her arm. Why is that fascinating to me? I've seen a lot of them. Although they are quite rare, people. I don't care what anybody tells you. Oh, you got 8 implants, you got 5, you got 4. No, you don't. That's testable. I look at hundreds of x-rays every year. Hundreds. Implants are rare. Rare. Yes, objects are in people, but they're often not really alien implants. There's often other things that you can account for. But the ones that you find that are real, like this, they're incredible. Oh man, I'm excited. So, let me go a little further here. Get into this a little more. Here she is. The object inside her arm. The reason it's fascinating, she said, Mr. Sims, he said, when you come to Brazil, you can, this is yours. Everything. Take all of it. Everything. I said, obrigado. I didn't get you anything for Christmas. And she says, this is your work. This should be yours. I said, well, thank you, young lady. She said, only one request, you do hypnotic anesthesia on me. I want to know what it's like to be operated on and not to feel a thing and heal up 3 to 5 times faster, like you say. I said, deal. I said, first thing I want you to do, go get me an x-ray. She gets an x-ray. Guess what it shows? Nothing. Oh, that's weird. Go get an MRI. She said, okay. She doesn't drive a long way to do all this. She owns a ranch out in the middle of nowhere. She goes to get an MRI. Hundreds of shots of this thing. We got it now, right? Guess what it showed? Nothing. This one's going to be a weird one. But you can see it under her skin, and you look on the website, click on it, you'll see her playing with it and say, it's easy to see and all that, and it is. But it won't show up. One case that I had years ago involves in the Iran-Iraq War. You remember when the Iranians and Iraqis were fighting each other before we were fighting them? It seemed like they're always fighting somebody. This is an Iranian soldier, conscripted. He was an engineer, so that means you're going to be an officer. 200 of him and 199 other people, officers included, were all taken that day by 6 UFOs showed up in the skies. They thought it was a secret UFO, a secret government project that the United States had given the other side. So they shot our Hawk missiles up at them. Here goes the Hawk missile toward the UFO, and there's a Hawk missile goes up, the UFO just gets out of the way, and the missile goes right on by. So that didn't work out real well for them. The next thing happened was the guy hit, everybody's like, whoa, because the UFO started coming down, out of the sky. This is broad daylight. And the guy jumped, he said, I jumped down in the ditch we'd built because we had no protection for anything out in the middle of the desert. He said, I looked up after this whoosh went by, and he said, I looked up and everybody was gone. All 199 of them are gone. He said, Mr. Sims, I'm an engineer. I don't believe in anything. And I'm telling you, that is exactly what happened. He said, the next thing I noticed, another one came by and heard this whoosh. He said, then I was gone. The next morning, we all woke up at the same time, 5:30 in the morning, and we all sat up in bed at the exact same time. I said, what did your officers tell you that happened? He says, they told us it's just like, it's kind of like the explanation, it's moonburn. It didn't happen. What are you talking about? What happened? And you won't be talking about it either. He said, he said, whatever they did to the back of my head. And he said, every time he's an engineer in the city of Houston. He said, every time I go out to eat, those blackbirds out in the park, I call them the crackles. They fly down and get in on your old food and everything. Want you to feed them all the time. He said, they attack the back of my head. And it's so embarrassing, I have to go back inside. I can't eat outside because they keep attacking my head, wanting whatever's inside it. It's really weird stuff. Don't give your kids implants. I'm just kidding. One of the most amazing things I found was a little girl came into her mind. Mommy, some strange little man with big black eyes came in my room and it scared me. And it did something in my nose. She said, my daughter doesn't lie about anything. I said, yes, ma'am. Whatever you say works for me. And we found 4 of these gold spheres inside little girl's nose. Now, I've brought a couple of them with me. You're going to need my magnifying glass to look at them because they're about the size of a dull pinhead. The mommy lost the first 4. I said, you did what? Get down on your knees and vacuum that carpet up and find every one of them. She said, I already did. She said, I don't know why, but I just vacuumed the whole thing up and threw the trash bag away. Why would I do that? It's called a program. She said, but that's okay. She said, I found 4 more. They came back 2 weeks later, and here's your 4. Thank you. We have examined them. They're 49% gold, 51% silver, and a metallurgist, a tenured professor, not an assistant, a tenured professor, looked at that and said, Mr. Sims, if I can replicate them, they're not alien. I said, I don't know what they are. Please do your test. Let me know the results. He said, I cannot replicate those, and I can't figure out why. I don't know why. He said, it doesn't make any sense to me. He said, so what's our next test? The next test you want to do is do a test called isotopic ratios. What is an isotopic ratio? It's kind of like the address of wherever the metals came from. If they come from Earth, that's okay. If they come from somewhere else, that's even more interesting. So we're going to find out what the address is. And that's what an isotopic ratio test will do for us. It'll tell us where the gold and the silver comes from. This is an abductee friend of mine up here, and I had to handle this one by long distance. The doctor removed the implant out of the top of his ankle. The doctor was given strict orders and an agreement, written agreement. You will give the implant immediately to the patient. Fine. He didn't. That happens a lot. Doctors will steal them. They will take them. They will disappear. All kinds of excuses. Trust me, they stole them. Anyway, he gave 3 different explanations to the relatives of what happened to this. One of them was it exploded. Another one, it just disintegrated. Another one was he just don't know where it went. So 3 different sets of the family, these 3 different lies. Well, what's really neat is the guy called me back a few days later and he said, hey, Mr. Sims, I said, yes. He said, I had to go back to the doctor. My foot's hurting. I said, and? He said, it's back. Now, the neat thing about that story is I said, if I were you, I'd go back to the doctor and say, either you punish me my implant or I'm going to get you for malpractice. And he said, what do you mean? It's because either you did, if you took the object out, where's it at, and I want it now, or number two, you didn't take it out, but you did a surgery on me, and it's still in my foot. Which way do you want to go? And I said, I guarantee you'll get some quick results out of this guy. But the thing was back the next day. In 1988, I found this one. This came out of a lady's nose. We don't know what this thing was. It was a psych patient, and the therapist wanted me to come by and look at all this. And she said, well, I think she's just having some difficulties she can't deal with. And I said, really? I said, have you looked at her sculptures? Long white fingers, real thin, long white fingers, sculptures. I said, most women who do sculptures like that sculpt women or men's hands or something. They don't sculpt something that doesn't exist. That looks like that. And she had a lot of drawings and everything that matched the same thing. I said, lady's probably an abductee. Then you get people who give you stuff like this. This is an intelligence tech implant that was given. I actually saw this. They gave this to me, and I said, don't ever call me back here again. I said, this is low tech, and first of all, it's not alien, it's not intelligence, it's not anything. You made the whole thing up. Do not talk to me again. A big one I want to tell you about real quick. This is a NASA scientist. This is not the same object, but it's so incredible, I've got to tell you. He was sitting there he's an abductee. I got 3 of them that are abductees in NASA. He's got a light over. He's doing his little work, his science work and everything for the next day at his home. And he looks up and something's wrong with the light. He looks up in the light and he says, isn't that weird? The filament's got some extra stuff in the filament. And he realizes somebody's listening to me. Or somebody's watching me. And I said, what'd you do? He said, I called the FBI. I said, that was a big mistake. That's what they do. He said, they took it, got the report, and I called them back, said, tell me about what you found. They said, found what? What are you talking about? I didn't know anything about a light bulb with anything in it. A few years later, Pete calls me up and said, hey, Derrel. And what was neat, Chuck Modlin, the director of investigations for MUFON, was at my house studying implants for about a month with his wife, Vicki. And Pete called and said, I found another one of those. I said, oh my gosh, please tell me you didn't call the FBI. He said, not this time. He said, but I did store it. I said, where's it at? He said, I don't know. It's a typical abductee answer. So now I'm going to have to twist his arm, go down and go through all of his stuff in a shed to find it. Some people ask about my work, what I think about it. I never give them an answer. I thought you'd like that. At our second set of surgeries, we had Michael Linneman there and Bob Dean and others. And interesting, this is my senior investigator, Dale Musser. I had him take care of all the implants. I always pick someone out that I trust to carry these things and handle it. For those of you that abductees or contactees and you are male and you have, after an event, you've ended up with a growth or a bump on your scrotum and you ended up with sexual dysfunction for 6 months to 18 months, that's what it's all about. This is Dr. Bruce Cornett, and this is his actual own case. And this stuff happens, I'm telling you. This is an ocular implant that fell out of a lady's eye after a mass abduction of 8 people in 2 states and several cities. This is an implant inside a woman's, behind her lung. Right there, you see the size of that object? It's the size of a walnut. The doctor, a military doctor, says, I've known this woman 20 years. She'd never lie about anything. He said, it doesn't matter. He said, whatever that thing is, it's there. Here's something fascinating. A guy who's a chef in San Francisco sent this to me. He says, Mr. Sims, he said, we found this in one of my, he said, I served sturgeon, and one of my guests found that in his mouth. I said, that is an implant that scientists put inside fish to check their monitor where they go and so on. And he says, well, would you like it? And I said, I would for a fact. So we got it, and we did some studies with it. Some abductees will come back with this, and this is really interesting. Implant that was in the guy's hand. He said, that's an implant. I said, no, it's a BB. He said, no, it's an implant. No, it's a BB. Send it off to lab, spend all that money. Guy sends it back and says, it's a BB. It's a BB, folks. We're not afraid to look at anything. This is a guy that we're doing 3 surgeries one day, and this fella claimed the intelligence community had put an implant in his jaw, and it's a big secret and all that. And I didn't believe the story, but I don't care. I will listen to anybody's story, and I will do what I can to facilitate that. He freaked out, couldn't go through the surgeries, screaming, I didn't know what to do. And he says, I said, do you want to go through the surgeries? Yes, but I'm too afraid. And I said, you ever heard of an instantaneous induction? He said, what's that? I said, it's not like, you're going to rest now. He said, how's it work? And I said, he fell over and said, he's ready. That actually happened, by the way. That was the implant. Took it out. The so-called military intelligence implant was nothing but low-grade lead. In fact, this is Mike Evans. Anybody know Mike? He discovered something in the guy that it really troubled me, and I went to the guy afterward and I said, you told me you didn't have any medical issues before, and he said, that's true. Nothing, no surgeries, anything? He said, that's right. I said, what are you doing with a clavicular screw in your clavicle? He says, I said, when you lie to me, you lied to the alien hunter? We don't do business anymore. This one's for free, but you're out of here. That's it. And we through different groups of people found these. A man found this. Bill Bean found some of these in his mouth. They're little tiny square things, about the size 1/8 inch square. And then guess what? Another lady found them in Houston, and I asked her, do you all have toothbrushes that are real old? And they said yes. So I went to the flea market next morning, found me about 30 toothbrushes, broke them all open, and inside the little holders there, you see those little things? Those are those little metal things. They're not alien implants. Get bigger and better toothbrushes. Listen to your dentist. Goodness. This guy's on the internet said, look at all them implants the government stuck in my brain. Please put your police hat on here, or medical hat. He's not telling the truth. But I had a medical doctor sit down with me in great detail and explain to me exactly how I had those get in your head. He said, they're all surgically done. He said he knew exactly that was happening. The intelligence company did not do that to anybody. This lady gave this one to a psychologist up here in L.A. She brought it to me immediately and said, oh my God, you can't allow her arm. Oh my God, she's dizzy and all that or whatever. And I said, I don't believe it. I said, first of all, it's low-grade lead. I had it tested. And second, low-grade iron. I said, number two, this thing really bothers me is the fact that there's no medical report whatsoever of the surgery. What does that mean? It means somebody's not telling the truth. Doctors don't do these surgeries without a medical report. It's the grounds for lawsuits and stuff. This is the last surgery that I did, and it was in Flint, Michigan. Bonnie is the name of the lady. This came out of her, behind her knee. There was no visible, this is really important, there was no visible place of insertion. It has to be alien then. Not necessarily. In fact, it is in fact just a nail. Nobody knows how it got there. But since her husband's an abductee, his wife must be one too. So he says, that's an implant. So he removed it. And at the end of the implant surgery, guess what the doctor said? I think I'll just keep it. My attorney was present. He says, Mr. Sims was not able to be here today because these people misscheduled the flight wrong. He said, but I'm his attorney. The lady signed off, the husband signed off, and you signed off. He said, sir, he said, you hand me the implant and the film and all the data, or I'll own this you in this office by Monday. He said, that's why I'm his attorney. He said, here. Amazing how you can get cooperation out of folks. This was the famous AOL implant. Remember the guy with all the scoop marks? He had an implant in his leg right there. See that thing? I call it the AOLer. It looked like as an alien implant. I told the brain surgeon I was looking at in the cardiovascular surgeon, I said, he's a mechanic. He crawls around on the ground. He probably got a shard of metal there. He said, well, what do you think that white dot is? And I said, it's probably a cyst in front of the metal. I said, the guy's a 100% abductee. There's no question about that. Honest as he can be. That probably is not an implant. I said, but we need to remove it anyway because we're not afraid to look at anything. And we did. And that was the doctor that did it, and as the Israeli medical team that was present, and so on and so on. Dr. Carla Turner's evidence. I'll probably end with this. Dr. Carla Turner gave me this evidence before she passed away. We were friends, and I consider her one of my abductees. I said, where did this come from, Candy? And she said, this came from a rape on board a craft of a strange-looking animal that raped my abductee, and there was a man present who witnessed the whole event. He did not know her. They later met. He came forward, told the story, and said, it's all true. I said, what is this stuff? And she said, that's from vaginal scrapings. And I said, what is that stuff? She says, I don't know, but I'm giving it to you because you're the guy that'll find out. She said, I did help you out a little. And I said, what'd you do? She said, I took it to my buddy, who I've known for many, many, many years, who's a forensic scientist. And he said, after he studied it, Candy, don't ever bring anything like that back to me at any time. Don't ever use my name in association with any of that material. I don't know what the thing is. I don't care. And whatever that compound is, it cannot exist in that matrix. Don't bring stuff like that back to me again. I don't know what it is, but it's sure going to be fun when we get our new DNA lady. It's going to be fun to see what she finds. Last story. You see the Carla Turner evidence, and this evidence over here looks very, very similar. One of my abductees one day got tired of his wife being sexually assaulted and treated badly and other things, so he said, I read that story about how you protected your daughter-in-law one time, and you had this big Japanese sword. It's real sharp. And I said, I do. I have a real sharp one. And he said, I put one next to my bed. I said, I was hoping one night that they would not say, you are paralyzed, you can't move, you can't do anything. And he said, and 99.999% of the time, they do. He said, but this time they didn't. I said, what did you do? He said, I impaled one of them. And I said, really? And he said, yes. He said, my two giant Rottweilers, who were paralyzed and all that as well, instantly when that happened, whatever mental control was going on, it broke it. And the two Rottweilers attacked the other two aliens, according to the story. And so I told my abductee, I said, that's a fascinating story, but where's the beef? He said, I sent the DNA evidence to this fellow who does a lot of amazing work. He's done work for Linda Moulton Howell and others. And I said, okay. He said, he's going to call you. You're going to call him one of the two tomorrow. And I said, great. And the man called me, the doctor. Anybody know Dr. Levin's good? Know of him? It was him. And he says, Derrel, I want you to look at this. And he says, I want you to tell me what you see on the slide. And I said, well, Dr. Levin's good. I'm not qualified to make a determination of what biological is there or not. And he said, just tell me what you think you see. And I said, I looked at it for a while, and I'm sorry I didn't have that slide with me tonight, but I'll tell you about it, and I will show it later, but especially when we get the DNA work done on it. He said, I said, it looks like an animal cell, and it looks like a plant growing out of it, sir. He said, that's exactly correct. He asked a few other questions, and I said, what does all this mean to you, sir? He said, I think you have the smoking gun. I said, what in the world is a smoking gun? I said, I'm an ex-cop. Whenever a gun's been fired, something got shot at or hit. What does that mean to you? He said, I've studied cattle mutilations for over 40 years, and he said, we have evidence of cattle all the time. Amazing stuff. But no one has ever put the alien at the same... He said, like you're a police officer. You were. He said, you need to put the criminal or the perp at the scene. And I said, that's correct. And he said, you have the criminal at the scene, sir. He said, you have both the cow and it. And you're the first one I've ever seen that did it. And I said, it wasn't me, it's my abductee. So the two dogs, in 60 days, died. They were not able to assimilate protein for whatever reason. And they literally starved to death and nothing they could do for them. That was fascinating. Okay. Let me get the last thing here. One last thing. Okay. This is fascinating. You'll love this. This is the last implant, two implants I want to show you. One of my abductees in L.A., she and her husband got abducted out in the Four Corners area, the 4 states. They were out on vacation. The kids, she said, I can't figure out why our kids didn't get up. They would normally, it's vacation, they'd be getting out of the little travel trailer and be up at the bright crack of dawn. Me and my husband were up looking so beautiful. We want to get up in the sunrise. And she's, next thing we know, we're laying out there in the hot sun shining on us. And I said, and what happened? She said, I don't know. The kids, we had to go wake them up. I mean, they're burning up inside there and they won't wake up. I said, goodness sakes. I said, what is this picture? And she said, well, she said, I came back and I was pregnant. And I said, and she said, you don't understand. Me and my husband have not had any kind of relations here. I said, okay. I said, well, what is this picture representative of? She said, well, my dog was with me out there when we were abducted, my husband and I, and she came back pregnant too. She said, now mine disappeared. I said, that's kind of, I'm going to answer that issue here in just a second. The last thing I'm going to do. And she said, I think this one, if I'm not mistaken, is the mommy, and these others are the children. She said, I take care of my dogs like I do my children. That dog has never been around any other dog, period. I guess somebody forgot to get that in the first trimester, huh? So, here's the big one. You know the Betty and Barney Hill story? They stuck the bendable needle inside of her and everything. Kind of interesting. We have a case just like that. This is really amazing. Somebody sent me this implant with it from it's inside their cat. But this is the last one I want to show you tonight. And I'll make some final statement. MUFON, another organization, have said the women who claimed alleged alien pregnancy, they're incorrect because there's no medical evidence to support it. I would like to contradict that if I may. I took this sonogram with this strange little long pointed chin baby's head to a fetal hospital in England, in London, and had two doctors go over this very carefully, and they could not figure out what in the world, number one, it was. Number two, they said the sonograms, whoever took these sonograms had no interest in the fetal development of this child because they didn't realize this is an intelligence operation. They found a lady that had been impregnated, and they got it before the alien did. This is a true story. Believe me, it took until I saw those sonograms, I didn't buy any of it. Not a word. So that's kind of amazing. What I want to answer to give you, my final statement to you is this. The bottom line is, the map is not the territory. Does everybody understand that? If you have a map of California, do you have California in your hands? No. You have a map. If that map is really well representative, it can tell you where to go in California to find California, but it is not California. The menu is not the meal. That's a little better illustration, I think. You can eat the menu if you want to, because it's often better looking than the food, but it won't taste like the food. It just won't. What does all that mean? What that means simply is this. Implants are not the territory. Maps are not the territory. Implants are not the territory. UFOs are not the territory. All those may simply be maps. Crop circles, probably just maps. And we need to pay attention and not get focused on a map when we really need to find out where the territory is. And when these gentlemen went out to the Skinwalker Ranch, that's closer to where the territory's at. You know what I mean? Thank you for being here tonight and for allowing me to come spend time with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Derrel. If you don't mind, we're going to have a question answer. Everybody can line up. You know the drill. Rodney, you're up, big guy. You need a little break, Derrel, or you good? You need a little break, or?
No, I'm ready anytime. Anytime you're ready. Anytime.
Go.
Anytime.
Okay, thank you.
If I don't have the answers, my best friend here does. I do, and as soon as we finish the question and answer, I would like to look at it. I have another lady who will look at it as well, and I'll go look, be glad to look at that for you. Absolutely. Okay. As soon as we finish the question and answer, I'll be glad to. I brought a few things with me to look at. Sure.
Yeah, you guys can also join Derrel in the back afterwards for a few minutes.
They can't hear you.
You can join Derrel in the back after the question and answer for a few minutes if you want him to sign the book, and if you have additional questions. Thank you.
As we do the question and answer, a couple of people got some things they want me to look at. And I brought a little bit of equipment with me to look at them. If those of you have something you want me to look at, I'll be glad to do that. I did bring my specialized black light. In case some of you have been wrapped up in the Shroud of Turin. You might be able to find out if that's true. Just kidding. This lady and another lady over here, we're going to look at them. So if we can help you with that, it's free. Don't charge anything. Everything we do with our abductees, paperwork, the surgeries we did, every bit of this is free. It comes out of my pocket. And the reason, and some doctors volunteer and do wonderful things for us. And as long as we can keep it free, it's free to abductees. And the reason for that is because I've gone through this myself, and I would not charge people money for what I went through myself. I don't mind people who do, who give me therapy and stuff. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. So for me, that's just a number. Can't do it. When do you want to do this?
We can stand
up there right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Anytime. Question answer time.
Hi, Derrel.
Already ready. Yes, sir.
We appreciate you coming over here. I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Where do you think these beings are coming from?
Great question. I didn't have time. I wanted to get into that tonight, but it's just too much. In my opinion, I'm going to give you the fast food version. I will prove it, in my opinion, or not be able to prove it, one of the two, this year. Because we do have some DNA from an alleged one of these beings and so on, and we have other evidence as well, fluorescence evidence, which kind of gives us a fingerprint of these entities. In my opinion, when you look at the aliens all lined up, 7 of them, the Nordic, the Bigfoot, and the little guy, and his doctor, and all of those, reptile, all of them. Ask yourself a real simple question. If I were from another planet, or wherever in the universe, and I wanted to make a praying mantis type being 7 foot tall, where would I get some praying mantis DNA? Probably planet Earth. If I were going to do that with a reptile, where would I get probably the best look? All of it comes from here. What I'm trying to tell people, and of course a lot of people don't hear this, I'm an investigator. I don't care where it comes from. I don't have a dog in this race. My point is that, in my opinion, from what we found after 38 years of work on this stuff, is that these entities are made, hatched, cloned, manufactured. They're transgenics is what they really are. Out there, they're made out there, but the DNA came from here. I mean, the Hopi and the Navajo and the Zuni all say the same thing. These are the ant people. That's the little guys that in the ancient carvings on the walls, they actually have little antennas sticking off their head. You say, why don't they have them today? Because the models you're looking at today, those back then were like the Model T, and now they have a Lexus. My opinion, that DNA comes from here. Someone else is using them to interact with human beings, pawning them off, in my opinion, as aliens, whatever they, I don't know what they are, but they appear to be a transgenic manufacturer or maker, clone of something from DNA from this world. That's
Thank
my
you.
best short answer to you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Great question.
Derrel, you said you were about 18 inches, a foot and a half away from an alien.
Yes, sir.
And that you were aboard a ship at one time.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what the aliens look like, and can you describe the ship? And if those aliens on the ship were different from the one that was a foot and a half away from you?
But very good, sir. Great question. I've had interaction with several different kinds of entities. The first one I ever saw was the guy in my room. I mean, I couldn't figure out, I wasn't scared or anything. I was sitting up in the bed like, it's freezing. Why is he not, where's his clothes? You know, he turned around and he looked at me and he was pure white. He's skinny, spindly, bulbous head, same way as the difference was he had perfectly large, round, black eyes. What does that mean? In my opinion, that was the model for that time. The Hollywood version with the elliptical eyes and all that, that's today's model. Later, I called the handler, came and picked me up later when I was just a little older, and he got me and everything. The next morning, what I remembered from the event, I was out playing, and there were all these grasshoppers everywhere in Mayhill, New Mexico. It's summertime at this point. And I did something I'm ashamed to say. Every grasshopper I found, I pulled the head of it off. I pulled the heads off of hundreds of them that day. Hundreds. I've never harmed, I just don't harm animals. I've rescued more animals than most people ever seen in their life. Everything. And I could not stand a mantis-like head at all. And when I put that little thing close to my face, then I knew what the problem was. That's the deer I saw last night. And the way he treated me was pretty bad. But the point is, so the mantis being was there. This guy, in my last event, I've never described the entities there in that event because the event was so horrific and they were not part of the UFO phenomena. They are part of it, but they're not the alien.
How about the spaceship?
The spaceship, or whatever they are, the craft that I've seen, the UFOs, I've seen numerous different kinds. And this was true of this one event, and it's true of many abductees. Many abductees didn't see the outside of the craft, but they saw the inside of it real well. You know what I mean? They took you out of your house and you ended up in there, so your consciousness, it doesn't mean that it wasn't there, you just didn't see it. And when I was very young, I didn't see the outside of it. I did at other times. But sometimes, some of the craft are definitely, I've seen discs that were absolutely, they're stunning to see. They're perfectly, the ones I saw were close to probably 100 feet across, 3 of them at a time flying across the desert. That's the most amazing sight I've ever seen. I saw some of them in broad daylight that were red-orange, discs the same way. Alamogordo, New Mexico, Holloman Air Force Base, 12 miles away. White Sands Missile Range, one of the most secretive places on the planet, just right down the road. And these things are flying around. And I just was stunned at what I saw. So I've seen different kinds of craft.
The inside?
Inside of the craft, most of it is quite sterile. The thing that stunned me about more than anything that I saw on that craft, I didn't see, it's what I didn't see that stunned me. Where's the bathroom? I mean, where's the bathroom? Where's his TT? He doesn't need the bathroom because he didn't have a TT. Whoa, you know. So I was stunned by things I didn't see. And as I got older and I became more of an observer rather than a victim, I started watching some of this stuff. I was amazed at how little there was inside these craft. There wasn't massive amounts of scientific equipment and all that. It was amazing how little was in there. I was just rattled by that, stunned. One of the last thing I'll tell you, we had one craft in the mass abduction December 8th, 1992. 8 people were taken in 2 states and 2 cities. 8 people, they all told the same story. And the engineer told me about the case first. And I said, he said that craft is 50 miles thick and 600 miles across. He said, I thought you'd have a problem with that. And I said, I do. And he said, good. He said, so I brought the video, just like an engineer. And he did. Massive craft going between the Earth and the Moon during the same exact time. Is that our craft? I don't know. But whatever it was huge. And it was during the same time, same place of that mass abduction. on those 2 nights. That thing was massive, and it had some incredible things. I need to write a book just about what they saw inside there. Incredible. All consistent stories. Thank you, sir.
Okay, and another thing is this. Why were those aliens so fixated? Why do you think those aliens were so fixated on that Darth Vader light, or do you think they were fixated on that Darth Vader light? And do you think that undersea alien base off the coast of Malibu will lead into really massive UFO activity over Southern California in this area, like within the next few weeks or few months?
Okay, let me see if I can address that. What Jimmy has produced for us to see tonight, the underground base, I've told people for years that, in my view, that's where a lot of this stuff is, where they're traveling. That's why you don't see them just go outside and see it. They're traveling under the waters through the rivers and so on. They've been doing it for years. Native Americans tell these same stories. The fact that you have apparently a base, if that story stands good, you may have an underground base. It may be abandoned and now connected directly to the intelligence community, and that's where they're doing some of their operations. I would. Maybe there's no aliens there. I suspect there are no aliens there. That's just my opinion. But I'll tell you, somebody was there. Somebody built it. Somebody did it.
Well, do you think this base off of coast of Malibu has expanded within the last 10 or 15 years? And do you think it's connected to those other underground bases along Topanga Canyon? And do you think the Topanga Canyon bases have expanded within the same time within the last 10 or 15 years? Because
I think
that really concerns me.
Yeah, it concerns me too. The fact is that the United States Air Force has a boring machine that is approximately 15 feet across. I don't know if you've ever seen this thing. It says United States Air Force on the side of it, and this thing can bore, and it just takes off, and it doesn't go very fast, but that's not the point. What in the world does Air Force need a boring machine for? Were they going to bore through a cloud or something? It's really amazing to me. And he's on the right track. I'm not a conspiracist. I'm not into all this. You know, there are millions of underground bases and they're doing all kinds of weird stuff. But I do live with what I can find. And I will tell you one thing that I've never told anybody else. When we were doing the Uncovering Aliens in Sedona, everybody told us we got to go to the underground base. Well, I went out there and nobody showed me where it was at. That really irritates me. I spend all my time and money to come here, and you got this big underground base, and no one knows where it's at. I'm mad. So I went home and did some research and got a couple of engineer types and everything. Said, here's what I want you to do. I said, I don't have your skills, but I need your brain. So let me use your brain and let me do my thinking. And they did, and I think we found the base.
Because that underground base stuff, it affects my sleep every night and stuff. It really concerns me.
Does mine too. Somebody just come clean. Thank you so much. Thank you for your question. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Derrel, I'd like you to put on your intelligence hat for a moment, and just with all of your experience, what do you think you had mentioned that one motive might be to find human beings that look at things differently, whether psychically or engineering-wise, but what do you think the ultimate end game is for this advanced civilization to keep messing around with us?
If my thesis is correct, and I don't know that it is, it's just a thesis. It's just a working model that I work off of. And if the DNA is consistent with the thesis, what we in effect what we won't have here is an advanced civilization doing all kinds of stuff. We actually have someone manufactured, hatched, cloned, or made these entities to interact with us, and we have, for whatever reason, called them aliens. Now, I'm Irish as well. In Ireland, they were called the wee folk. They've made up a different story to every civilization that they've been infested or dealt with. Every one of them's got a different story. The Indians, Native Americans, all of them, different stories. So the real question to me ultimately would be, who made them and to what end? That would be a huge story. And that's, I think, the DNA may tell us that, and I hope that it does. But I think that the answer to your question, the short version, for me, was in the mass abduction. One of the two things, two entities showed up on that craft that were huge, and they asked two questions of both of these abductees. All these aliens, the whole group of them, I was telling you about the Bigfoot and all of them, they're all standing there shaking because they're scared of this guy. This guy looks at Dale and said, "Where is the human soul?" The first thing that bothered me about that is, why doesn't he know? Why is he asking? I thought you were like 1,000 light years ahead of us. Why don't you know? In the other room, they're asking the woman that was involved in this. They asked her, "Where's the human soul?" And they were really upset that they did not know the answer to that.
That's like that.
I don't know what that means. I don't know. It's just all conjecture on anybody's part now, but I don't know. Yes, sir.
Okay, no, that'll be it for tonight, so.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Everybody. I'll see you in the back.